People do business with people that they like. And so if you build a reputation and build a relationship with people, that opens the door for opportunity.
So everyone that listens to this knows that I absolutely love to travel. I just got back from Orlando and I was at a conference. And although I usually talk in the real estate agent and mortgage world, this time had the privilege of speaking with a bunch of home inspectors and people that are running anywhere from a one-man in a truck type business to these crazy like $4, $5, $6, $7 million businesses. And one of the guys I talked with, and I was actually on his podcast, is Matt Williams, who we're going to be speaking with today. It only took Matt 2 years to build up a $1 million inspection business. And then as we got talking, there were so many similarities into how anyone in the real estate realm builds a business the right way that I knew I just had to have him on the show. So Matt, dude, thank you. Although I preferred seeing you in Orlando where it was sunny, I'm happy to have you in my virtual podcast studio in Michigan where it's cloudy.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I just want to get started. So I want to hear your story. So I think so many people that listen are kind of these like serial entrepreneurs who are looking for like, what's the next thing? And you had done a bunch of stuff, like from sales to starting businesses. Hell, you were a pastor, for God's sake. Yep. How did you decide that it was time to make one more pivot and then obviously get into kind of the real estate business?
Well, yeah. So I've owned a bunch of different businesses, I think 10 in total. Some of them went really well. Some of them didn't. Some of them I've sold for a bunch of money. Some I had to close down. And some just lost money and never got them off the ground. So, I've kind of been through all of it a few times now. And so I was serving as an interim pastor at my church where the previous pastor was my dad. He retired. I said I'd serve for a couple of years to help bridge the gap before the next long-term pastor. And when that was coming to an end, I knew it was time to start a business and get back into what I love to do. And so I kind of weighed out a bunch of options. And I actually met with one of my friends who's a real estate broker here in town. And I said, hey, man, I'm looking at these different businesses. And he's really sharp. So we're brainstorming together. And I said, hey, there's this third thing I was looking at, home inspection. I don't know a lot about it, but it looks really interesting to me. And he says, oh my God, Matt, you have to do home inspection. I've seen how you run your other companies. I see how you do other things. He's like, if you come into this space, you're going to crush it. And so really that was the catalyst for me to be able to go, you know what, why not? Let's give it a shot. And so ran hard on home inspection. And that conversation was at the end of 2018. And so I started doing more research. And then the middle of 2019, I did my first inspection. So my second full year in business, which was 2021, we did about $1 million in revenue.
That's amazing. Well, I want to actually kind of focus on all of those things in between the first inspection and the $1 million mark being hit in your second year, because a lot of the agents I know who I talk to are in this kind of like dirty middle of like, they're good enough to get into the business to get their first couple transactions. And some of them even hit that 100K level, but getting to that next level. And like, just to compare, like doing 1 million inspections makes you the top 1% of home inspectors, and all realtors want to be in the top 1% of agents. So like, what are some of the tangible like business owner things you did in order to get there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And by the way, I should mention for everyone out there that you did it in a community. Like you're not in Miami where you're doing like one crazy $1 million home inspection year. You're doing this in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is very similar market. Like many of the markets that we all listen in. So how did you build a business in an industry where there's already 50 other home inspection companies? Every agent already had someone. Like just like many realtors feel, it's a crowded industry. Like how did you break through the crowd?
Yeah. Okay. So Albuquerque is a sub 1 million person market. So it is a mid-sized market that you would find in every state in the country. So it's not some crazy market like you said. So in the beginning, every business is a one-man show. Really, if you're starting from the ground up, especially with realtors, you're starting from the ground up. It's just you. And as you start to scale, as you start to get more business, you have to be able to grow beyond your capacity. As the owner, you are the bottleneck in your business. And so a couple of principles I really focused on. One of the big ones was culture. Is the business needs a culture, and the culture will default be you as a human, who you are as a leader, as a culture. And if you don't like the culture of your business, look in that is your mirror to let you know something about you needs to change the culture in your business. And so your culture, from $0 to about $2 million as a business, your culture trumps everything else. Yeah, everything. And so if you have the best strategy and a crappy culture, it doesn't matter. If you have a phenomenal culture and a crappy strategy, you're going to win. So in the beginning, to get to $1 million, focus on the culture of your business. And then when you have to hire people, because one person in the real estate space, you need to have people helping you. And that might be associate brokers on your team, or it could be virtual assistants helping you, or whatever your business model might be. But you're going to have other people helping you to get there. And that's where your culture comes into play. And you hire people based on how they fit your culture. And so that was one of the main things that really helps with all the businesses I've had, anything I've ever scaled. Culture wins in the beginning.
I love that. And I think for a lot of realtors, like the culture really, for the first like 10 million in sales, or let's say the first 30 sales a year, it really is just them. And so the culture is what they're putting out there into the community, how they're approaching the business in general, what type of work they're doing themselves, and what type of work they're using maybe a virtual assistant, a transaction coordinator for, and then figuring out like, how are you differentiating yourself from all of the other people in your community? I mean, like, I'm sure there were other inspectors near you, other competitors. How did you separate yourself from the pack early on?
Well, okay. So you got to kind of recognize what are some of the maybe weak spots in your industry. And so with home inspectors, a lot of them are a little bit grumpy. They've been doing it for a little while. They have a lot of information. They're tired of repeating the same information over and over again. And so they start using technical words. People don't understand those technical words. And then they get a little bit grumpy. That's kind of the stereotype of the home inspector. And the home inspector tends to like be a little rough around the edges and so I kind of went countercultural to that. And how do we create a kind of a retail friendly environment for first time home buyers and people who aren't in the industry? Because when they're showing up to the home inspection, people are full of anxiety and fear. And so we need to be people who bring peace and confidence into that environment to help people to be able to process the information that we're bringing to the table. Because we do bring a lot of information to the table very, very quickly. And we need to have these people understanding that. So as a realtor or any other industry, what are some of the stereotypes that people have for your industry? And how do you position yourself where you're not that? And and so if I can poke fun for just a minute.
Poke fun. I think we all need to be taking down a notch.
All right. So poke fun for a little bit. How many real estate agents are like, what are you actually selling here? You're driving up in your Lamborghini, you're getting out in your 3-piece suit, or if you're a woman, you're wearing a short skirt and high heels, and there's more, you're showing your body more than they are the house. They're showing the car and the watch and the sunglasses more than the house. And so the image is like real estate agents. Some of the stuff is like, well, you can come across as a very like pretentious, hoity toity, like I'm hot, I'm beautiful, or I am rich, or, kind of vibe. And it's like, all right, well, is that really who you are as a human being? Or are you just putting on that show because everybody else puts on that show?
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because like I know people listening to this are getting pissed off, right? Like that's not what realtors are. Everyone's going to say that's not what we're like in my area. But here's the deal. We're all starting beneath like a fair playing field, because everyone in America is watching shows on TV about real estate.
Yep. $1 million listings. Yeah. You look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the realtor on TV. So even though we as the individual agents in small town America or big town America might not be like that, we're starting out and we have to battle those misconceptions and almost like go really far in the opposite direction just to show who we truly are. And if you're not like really establishing a brand that's like aside from that and really doing something to showcase that that's not what real estate is, you're still getting lumped into that group, even though that's not what we're all trying to portray. That's a great point.
Absolutely. It's totally a stereotype. And the TV shows have promoted it. And then a bunch of realtors, at least in my area, they jump on Instagram and reinforce that stereotype, And so it's like, all right, so who are you really? What are you actually selling? I don't actually sell home inspections. I sell peace and confidence. That's what I sell. And so are you actually selling a house? No, you're actually selling something different. Are you selling Are you selling an HVAC system? No, you're selling something else. Are you selling a plumbing? No, you're selling something else. What are you actually selling? And what are you actually carrying with you? And then make that your culture so that everybody in your culture, everywhere they're going, is carrying that peace and confidence. In my case, that's what I'm selling. And so, you have to be able to identify that and then position yourself and your company culturally in a place where you're promoting that. Once you get your culture narrowed down, that impacts your marketing, it impacts your growth, impacts how you get customer acquisition, customer retention. How do you conduct yourself with your subcontractors and with your different providers that you're working with? That culture piece really, really matters, and it sets you apart. And it needs to be authentic to who you are. And so if you're looking at the TV shows and Instagram, and if you're looking to the left and the right to figure out, are you doing a good job? You're losing. You got it. That's it. Comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison back and forth will get you not outside of your identity. And so as soon as you start adapting everybody else's strategies, it's the quickest way to lose your own. So
but what I'm kind of hearing though is
else's culture.
Comparison is bad. Looking outward to see what everyone else is doing that you don't like, that isn't the way that you want to do business, and then kind of figuring out, how can I go far the other way? Or how can I really, what is that thing, that element that's lacking from professionals in my industry in the market? And how can I offer that service? How can I offer that niche in the way that people want? Kind of looking out for that, not for the comparison, but to find the thing and then use that thing in your business, I think is kind of the lesson. So once you came up with it, once you figured out that you wanted to offer more of that Zen approach, that reassuring approach, that positive approach to home inspections, which can be super confusing, the same as real estate. How did you then start communicating that message out? What was your, what actual actions did you take? Because I'm assuming it wasn't just because you're a nice guy that everyone just magically started using you. You probably had to do something very specific. I'm sure there were some things in your calendar. I want to hear about what are those calendar items? What does it take to then grow the business?
So in the beginning, I slept and worked, man. 7 days a week, I woke up and worked. That was it. And so there's a lot of hard work that has to go in and getting it built and getting it going. And then finding your center and finding your core identity and who you are, what sets you apart. And what that'll do is that will repel some people and attract others. And so if you're repelling people based on your personality or based on how you carry yourself, just know that you're doing it right, because that means you're going to be attracting the people that need to be part of what you're doing. So then, what are some of the things that I did? I don't know. In the beginning, I'd finish my reports at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I'd jump on Instagram and I would go find every realtor that was posting anything about their life. And I would comment on it. Congratulations. They just ran a 5K. Holy cow, that's amazing. Congratulations. And so I just started reaching out with positivity on Instagram.
You just shattered my brain right now with the simplest possible thing, because all these agents tell me that they want to do more on social media, but they don't know what to post. And you're saying that all you had to do was to simply reach out to them based on what they were posting about and say congratulations. What I like about that too is it's very goal oriented. You're reaching out to them, congratulating them on probably a goal that they achieved, which kind of naturally sets up the what's next. And if you're a real estate agent, if you're a home inspector, that what's next might be something else big in your life, a baby, a move, something else. And now all of a sudden you have that ammunition to figure out what your next move is going to be and what you might be able to do with the rest of that conversation.
Well, for sure. We all have a sphere of influence, right? You have an SOI that you're reaching out to. And for me, my SOI was reaching out to realtors because, I can reach out direct to consumer, but and I do a little bit of that, but honestly, I work through brokerages and realtors. That's my business model and my strategy. But as a realtor, you have to reach out to your SOI and the people that are in your sphere, and using social media is a great way to do that. And I don't run ads, and I just saw, hey, you had a baby. Congratulations. That's so cool. My kid turned 5. Oh, that's amazing. I remember my kid turned 5. It's a special year. I wasn't that's a special year. FYI, book me for home inspections. I didn't sell a home inspection. People do business with people that they like. And so if you build a reputation and build a relationship with people, that opens the door for opportunity. And okay, so here's a quick story. There was a realtor that was flying his drone around on social media, or talked about his drone. I can't remember now. I commented, it's oh, that's so sick. I'm thinking about getting a drone, and then he was like, oh, that's cool. So then I slid in his DMs And I was like, hey man, like legit though, I'm trying to get a drone for my inspection business. What he didn't know was that I already bought the drone. I just hadn't deployed it yet. And so I asked him about his drone. And so I just asked him questions about it and say, hey, can I come look at your drone? I want to see about it. And so I stopped by his real estate office and looked at his drone and then asked him a bunch of questions. And I showed him the drone that I already bought. And I said, I'm thinking about buying this one. What do you think? He's like, oh, that would be a great one for what you're doing. Cool. Thanks for your help. And then a week or two later, I reached out, hey man, I got this drone. I'm getting it all set up, can I show it to you? So then I meet up with him again, talk about the drone. And we're not talking about anything about real estate. We're talking about drones, and then at the end of it all, finally, after him showing all this different stuff, then I said, hey, by the way, I'd love to try out this drone on your next inspection, and with a little wink, haha. And he's like, yeah, he laughed. He's like, yeah, sure, man, I'll throw you one. Yeah. Now he sends me a bunch of business. And, but the reason is because I built a relationship with the guy and I found some way to do it. Right. And so I think when you're looking for, marketing and sales and growing a business, you got to figure out who's your target audience. And then you start commenting like birthday parties, they run a 5K, they whatever, and then they know you exist. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, there's 50 home inspectors in my town, but they all knew who I was, even when they weren't using me. And so I kind of just built it over time that way. That's one thing that I did.
Nice. Were there any kind of like pivotal moments as you've been growing your business and becoming, the number one in your market over the last 5 years that you thought like that you want to like share with everyone? Like, what were some of the things that you actually did rather than just like, I guess, like we always like to say, like, what did you do other than being awesome that led to monumental change in your business or extra market share? I know that's kind of like a harder question, but usually there's things that like might have seemed small at the time. But that as you look back, had a huge difference on kind of like where your company ended up.
I got really good at storytelling and stories. So now I have a bunch of like signature stories that I tell and that tie directly back into my mission, vision, values, my culture, kind of who we are as a company and what we do. And so if you were there at the conference, maybe you heard my keynote that I gave on Friday. And in that story, I talked about my dad dying or almost dying. He didn't die, but I used that signature story all the time. And I relayed it back into how, we carry peace and confidence everywhere that we go. So I think getting good at storytelling is...
and I've heard bits and pieces of this kind of idea in the past. Like we all know that telling a good story is important. But, if I'm a real estate agent, I think it's important to kind of like think about like what stories to tell and when, and what like emotional reaction you're hoping to get. If I'm a realtor, I probably want to have a really great story that's geared towards buyers I'm working with. I might want one that's geared towards sellers, and I might want one that's geared towards investors. And then within buyers, you might even need a first-time home buyer story as well as like something for those people with a lot of experience. Because I think like if you could tell a good story while you're interviewing someone, it gives them something a lot deeper to connect with. It kind of gives you a higher chance of like getting a really good grasp on a way for them to call you back and like a reason for them to remember you over the other people that they're interviewing.
100%. And telling your story in a way, like you want people to feel like they're an individual in your story and that you care for the individual. And yes, we do thousands of home inspections every year. Realtors like to post, again, this is so stereotypical, so don't shoot me for this, but they tend to post like, how many houses they closed or how many millions of dollars in real estate that they sold. And so whenever I do real estate meeting presentations, I throw out the numbers. I'm like, oh, I can play this game too, and like, I was like, we inspected $1.2 billion worth of real estate last year, and so, yeah, you might've sold 10 million or 50 million. And it's like, but the story that is you got to tell is if you're telling the story about the numbers of how much you've sold and how big you are and how well you've done, the only people that are listening to that or even care are other real estate agents and going, ooh, wow, but your actual buyers don't care. Like what do they actually care about? Are you going to pay attention to their needs? Are you going to help them through the difficult situation? Are you going to be by their side while things are going? Like if I have stress in the middle of, if I'm stressed out and I call you, are you going to handle this well? Like that's what buyers are really, and your clients really care about. Are you going to actually care about them? So the stories that I tell aren't about how big and great we are. The stories I tell about how we care about people and how I'm going to care about you. And so if you're going to tell a story about a first time buyer, don't mention the price of the house or how big it is or any of that stuff. You want to tell a story about like, man, it's funny. Like I actually reminds me about my friend, John and Lisa, who hired me to help them buy a house, and John and Lisa, they were concerned about this and this, and we ended up looking at a lot of houses, and we didn't quit, like there was times they wanted to quit. It was like, honestly, there's times I wanted to quit, but hey, you know what? We're going to get you through the finish line here. And so but eventually we found the exact house that they needed. And once we got it under contract, like I was able to help them. We were able to get across the finish line in this thing. There were some obstacles, but we stuck with it. We got all the way through. And John and Lisa are in this beautiful home, and they are raising their kid. They just had their second kid, like whatever. Like you tell the story, but you tell the story in such a way, and it's not about I or you. It's about we. It's like we did this together, me and John and Lisa, and I helped them, and we did this and we did this. And then what that does is it communicates to the person you're telling the story to that that's what you do for people. You help people get through the one of the biggest purchases of their life, And then with an investor, you're going to want to have a different story. That investor does want to know some ROI numbers because this is a business deal for them. And so you want to have some good stories for your investors, and then you want to drop and with your investors, you want to make sure your technical jargon is up to speed. You're like, yeah, I have this client. They've already depreciated this commercial property to the point where they really needed to 1031 exchange this into a new property because, they need the tax savings and whatever it might be. You got to be able to have your technical jargon because the other investor is going to speak that. And so you have a story there where you've helped another investor, get themselves out of a tax burden or whatever it might be that you can do. Right. And the same thing with your sellers, your listing people, and it's, I don't know. I think talking to the heart of the person on what they're actually struggling with and having a story that connects in that way is super helpful. And don't sell it. Don't do it in I'm so amazing. It's just we did this together. And it's you kind of build that teamwork with the story.
Well, it's interesting because I think, as we're talking about investors, it's a huge piece of the market. I think estimates say it's up to 20 to 25% of the market this year. But a lot of people, when they're talking to that group of people, and especially almost like anyone that's going business to business in a sales role, you almost forget to go into the Ford model, the typical family, occupation, recreation dreams. And I think what you miss when you don't still focus on that, even in more of a business transaction, is the goals. Yep. Investors have goals. And yes, obviously they want to make money, but that's the obvious part. The more important thing is how much work do they want to put into making that money and how much help do they want from you? And what certain forms of help are going to make their life easier and make their selection of using you a shoe-in and a no-brainer for them. The deeper you can go on all of those sorts of things, the easier you can figure that out and kind of pitch the idea mid-conversation. I think, the skill that a great salesperson in the real estate industry has is that we're ability to to make complex situations simple on the fly. You have that creative spark where you can take a situation that seems really hard and complex, break it down to something really simple, but do it live mid-conversation when you weren't already planning on doing so.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Yep. And I think story is a way to communicate a lot of things in a lot of facets very quickly. That's why, even like Jesus in the Bible is teaching, he tells stories constantly. He teaches in parables, right? Stories that have a purpose. And so get your stories together, get your parables together so that, you tell a short story, but it communicates so much to somebody.
I love that. Well, so that was the first couple of years. That was you getting going. Now that you're already running the company, now you have the podcast, you do some coaching in the industry. What's coming next? Obviously, we see all this news about changes in the industry, but what are the things that you've maybe implemented this year that you've started to see some success from, or things that you're excited to implement that you're giving a new try to?
Yeah. So there's different levels of scaling when you're scaling a business. And so, once we cross the $2 million mark in revenue, we're now we start to really get serious about KPIs. And now it's serious about tracking. Let's get serious about how we can make this replicatable. How do we how do we start to duplicate and replicate and whatnot? So, if as a realtor, it's like in the beginning, it's all you, but then you meet these giant real estate teams and you see them rebrand from, the John Smith, realtor to now Vertical or Excellence or whatever it might be. And they rebrand into a name brand rather than a person brand. You see that happening in that size. And so I think that's super important when you get to a certain size, that you have to be able to change from this is a one-on-one thing to we have a team of people that help you do this. And so that happens true with home inspection. That happens in every industry. And so, you don't know, it was said at the conference I was just at, but you don't know who the president of the Coca-Cola is, right? You don't know who the president of Coca-Cola is. You don't know their personal values. You don't know what they like and don't like.
That you just know that
you have no idea what the president of Coca-Cola is, but you buy their products and drink it. Right. You buy their products and drink it because you like the product, and the product is what sells itself. So,
well, interesting. I want to go back to the KPIs piece, because you mentioned KPIs and numbers as kind of like that thing that you want to make sure you have in order as you're continuing to scale. Yeah. I find it fascinating that when I meet with agents, I ask them, how many leads do you get a month? And they don't know the answer to that. I ask them, how many transactions did you do last year? And I show up to every meeting with a printout of basically their transactions because I have the software and I know the answer. Most people don't know that information. And so my number one rule would be, don't even think about scaling your business up until you have the key numbers that matter to your business being tracked in such a way that you can then measure the continued growth of your team as you start to implement new and additional changes.
Yeah. And I think that there's a balance on that, right? So in the beginning, you need some basic numbers. And then as you grow, you need to add different numbers. And then after that, as you continue to grow and scale, the KPIs and your numbers that you need to be tracking are changing as you're growing because you need to add more.
Right.
And so if you over track, this is my opinion, if you over track when you're really small, you put a huge administrative burden on yourself that's unnecessary. So there is a balance of, as you're growing, you need to be increasing your tracking. And so you want to be able to do that. So like right now, we were growing and tracking a little. And as we've been growing, we've been tracking more and more. Well, we've just had, again, just exponential growth. And now we're at this place of like, okay, we need to get our tracking caught up to where the size of our company is. And so you want to be able to, so that right now we're in the middle of that tracking, not because we're tracking it purely because we want to make sure that it's scalable. And now the company has been morphing and has morphed from, this is the Matt Williams Does Inspections show into there's a bunch of inspectors. I don't even do inspections anymore. Haven't done them in a couple of years. And the only time people really see me is out and about at networking events. But even that's being replaced by other people helping me with that. So now it's scaling to the place where hopefully the business grows to a place where it's like, they don't even know who I am anymore because the company has scaled to this place where, just like Coca-Cola, you're buying the product because it's a phenomenal product, not based on the personality of the person at the top. Where in the beginning, you're getting business.
Pinnacle, right? Like, I think that's definitely the pinnacle where like most realtors, like the top 0.01% get to that level. It's because I think there's a lot of ego involved when you're in sales, and like you kind of always want to be that person. But you do see this from time to time where some of these top realtors in the world, you find out they don't actually sell houses anymore. They might be the name that helps from a marketing perspective to collect the lead, but they're not necessarily the person that's showing the house, that's listing the house, that's doing any of those things.
Yes.
So it's an interesting paradigm.
Absolutely.
What's next? Like what are you guys looking forward to next? I mean, 2026 has already brought some changes, even if some of them are just doom and gloomy news headlines that have very little reality. But like, what are you excited to implement this year?
Okay, so everybody's talking about AI, right? AI is coming in. And so we're implementing more AI on the back end of our systems and processes. And, AI, so for me, I don't look at AI as like, oh, that's going to replace my job. All that AI is really going to do is empower us to get more done with less people or the same people. And so rather than hiring more people.
And I love that you said like you're looking at AI for the back end of your systems, as in not the front client facing stuff. So I think that's the challenge for real estate agents listening. It's what things happen in the background of your business that either make your life easier, or that's something you do that doesn't need to be you, that you could replace with a little bit of AI, or that could just be enhanced and maybe offer more information, more breadth of skill using a little bit of software.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I kind of approach it from the perspective of I want to automate as much as I can. And so in my industry, if you buy a home inspection, we have packages. You can do the home inspection with a termite inspection along with a sewer scope in my market is very common. Sometimes people want to get radon testing. That's common in my area, mold testing, and all the different environmental tests that are out there. They want a deeper evaluation of their solar system and performance report. There's different of the extra services that we offer beyond the basic inspection. And so sometimes people will call up as like, well, I just want a home inspection and a termite inspection. The person on the phone tries to upsell them, but they don't want to budge. Not a problem. They hang up. Automatically, back-end software AI systems detect what upsells are possible. And then we start reaching out through digital texting and through whatever else it might be, at texting and email, to be able to say, hey, if you add this now, you can save $20. And so now we're upselling people automatically on the back end. So we upsell clients to a better package.
And what I find interesting here is that upselling is something that I don't typically see real estate agents doing, but I think it is still an opportunity, because most people just think like, okay, I'm charging 3 to 6%, whatever. We're not allowed to talk about commissions, and I'm offering everything. Every realtor is offering everything, whatever it is they do, and they're charging the same price. But every now and then I hear of an agent that has, hey, it's 3 to 6%, whatever. But for an extra X, you can get this extra thing that's like an ultra premium service that I offer to buyers and sellers who this makes sense for. And I think the idea of offering some different services for situations where it makes sense makes you seem like you have more tools in your belt without necessarily making it seem like you're trying to sell them on one more thing.
I think that's true. So upselling is one that we use AI. I think a back-end phone answering, phone routing. So we have live people, but we also are right now trying to implement AI phone answering that goes 24/7. So our live people are there, Monday through Friday answering the phones. But let's say we have a couple people in the office. Let's just say they're both on the phone. AI can pick up and say, hey, this is Susie, the AI assistant. Our live agents are currently busy, but maybe I can help you with something, and what are you looking for? Or I can just take a message and then someone can call you back, and so to be able to have like an AI assistant on the phone that's helping handle that, especially after hours, someone calls in at 7:00 at night, we answer the phone, they pick up, hey, it's after hours, but I'm the AI assistant. I can handle almost everything that you would want. What can I help you with today? And having an AI assistant on the back end, well, rather than hiring a call center that has people in the Philippines or somewhere else trying to speak English, maybe I get an actual AI person that picks up in the after hours. And so, there's AI stuff there. On the home inspection side of it, the software is getting more and more advanced. In the future for home inspection, the technician in the field they already have iPads. They'll basically take a picture and scan the water heater, and it'll tell them what's wrong with the water heater, which means, the skill level on the guy in the field, he has to be good at what he does, but it will speed up his process in such a way that
make it more of like he'll need to know what photos to take, what videos to take, and then he'll need to know how to analyze the report to figure out where is AI getting it right and getting it wrong. And we're seeing this on the real estate side of things too. I mean, anyone that's heard our AI kind of knows that Zillow and all these sites have 10 billion photos that they can train themselves on. And they can figure out what type of walnut is in the cabinets. They can figure out how old that water heater is, what it's worth. You can get an immediate grade on every appliance in the house, the condition of the windows, the condition of anything. And that actually can affect the price of the home, and how there's a lot of softwares that will help agents figure out how they should price a home based on the condition and finish level and trim level of every item in the home. And that's something that a human being really can't do without a spreadsheet that has 10,000 data points. So I'm curious to see where it goes, but I think just right now, the message is maybe getting an understanding of the software and technology that you could be using and whether it makes sense price-wise in your business or not. Matt, this has been awesome. I think we have a ton of ideas. This is one of those episodes where my mind feels like it's more open than before and my wheels are spinning. And now I need to figure out, okay, what is the one thing that I want to implement? And I think everyone listening has at least a couple implementable ideas. So if someone is listening and they need a home inspector, or maybe they need a coach, how would they get a hold of you, Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I do a lot of coaching outside of real estate and inside of real estate, a bunch of different clients and companies. Things that I'm really, really good at is helping building systems and processes, developing a culture, helping you identify your culture and help you weave that through your entire thing. I can help you develop stories that sell, stories that bring connection to people. And I do a lot of keynote speaking at conferences now, which is a lot of fun too. And so the best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram, the.matthew.williams. If you go there, you can DM me or you can jump on my link tree and find all the links of what you would possibly want.
I love it. Matt, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.